Bill Belichick, who wrote the foreword, second losingest NFL coach of all time. And when he gets his next job, he'll be the losingest coach ever. 8 Super Bowls. Michael Jordan famously missed 9,000 shots. Kobe Bryant, as we discussed, didn't have a point in his first season. Cy Young, the award given out to Major League Baseball's best, he blew more saves than any other pitcher in MLB history. Martin Brodeur gave up more goals in hockey. Peyton Manning, rookie year, still has the record for most interceptions. He threw 28. Metallica had album flops. We talked about Vincent van Gogh being remembered. He never sold a painting when he was alive. All of these people share in common a relationship with pain and persistence. And we're just like them.
What's up, TLN Nation? I'm Samir.
I'm Colin.
We are the original founders of TLN, and we are back here today because our friend Paul wrote a book. Paul, welcome.
Well, it's great to be back with you guys. I miss you guys.
I miss you too.
I'm sure everyone at TLN misses you too.
I miss TLN. I miss TLN dearly, but it's been really fun to be a viewer of TLN recently. And
I just watched Through X last night.
And?
Amazing. CJ Kirst, phenomenal.
Brennan O'Neill's up next.
Kark,
next week.
You did a great job, Kark.
Kark did a good job.
I think also just to be a fan of the sport now, there's so much more media. And that was our original goal in the beginning. And to be a fan is just more fun right now.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I was telling someone recently about your origin story.
Okay.
Because I read about the importance of origin stories in that. And how you could have gotten a job with any studio. And you were convinced by one of the higher ups at YouTube to start a lacrosse channel on this new platform that everyone at home was saying, Samir, you're nuts.
Yeah.
You mean you're going to start a lacrosse network? But it became something that the sport then relied on.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, I think some of our collaborations early on were some of my, to me, you talk about reps quite a bit. And I think about TLN all the time when I think about reps as a storyteller. You know?
A lot of reps.
A lot of reps.
A lot of embarrassing reps for me on my channel.
For all of us. That's what
Well, we were looking out for you.
Yeah. Watch fly.
Yeah, we had your back.
Yeah.
But I think your next evolution as a storyteller obviously is you wrote your first book.
Yeah.
And we chatted quite a bit through this process, but never, got the final product until recently. And I think holding it has been a really cool experience and seeing people post about it on Instagram now. But in this, we wanted to talk through some of our favorite moments from the book.
Yeah.
10 lessons from 10 champions. And it's something that I really appreciate about this book is that you can open it up and, the reality is you could actually just open it up to any page.
Yeah.
Read a page and close it.
Yeah.
And do one page a day. And it's a really cool, almost spiritual or ritualistic book.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's wake up, have your cup of coffee, read a passage, do some writing.
Yeah.
Reminds me of practice. Hitting the wall.
Totally.
It has that rhythm to it.
Yeah.
And this sense of accomplishment when you finish 10 reps without dropping it or are able to read a chapter in a relatively short period of time, that's what we're in search of.
Yeah.
As humans, can we move forward?
Yeah.
And I would say, not knowing that about you, we share that in common. Seth Godin, Rick Rubin's book, Creative Act, just came out. Services as a Guide. Diego Perez, who's known as Young Pueblo, he writes Inward, and he's very poetic. Stephen Pressfield, short form. Ryan Holiday, sort of short form. Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. So those were books that introduced me to the art of reading and this medium. And I think that's, some of the things I've learned from you guys is authentically putting out into the world what works for you rather than trying to figure out what other people want and do that.
I think always being a consumer of the thing you create. I think it's so important. It was what we did at the early days with TLN. It's this is what we wanted to see.
Yeah.
So we made that thing, and we were an authentic consumer of it. So, shall we?
Let's get to some lessons. I've got a list here
Okay.
of 10 names.
Okay.
The first name here, Arguably the greatest of the greats, Muhammad Ali.
Right.
So, studying Muhammad Ali, what did you learn?
I think that Muhammad Ali was one of the kings of manifestation when it came to the ring. And a lot of athletes that aspired to be like Muhammad Ali took on that level of articulation. And the way that I think about it is to manifest something that's extraordinary, like being the greatest boxer ever. You first have to believe it to your core. And then you have to be willing to say it, which takes a lot of courage. If you don't believe it and then you can't say it, you can't become it. Muhammad Ali, I think, is the epitome of stepping out into the spotlight, saying, I am the greatest.
I am the greatest.
Having the courage to do that and then go back it up in the ring. And I challenge anyone who wants to be great to take that step in sharing it. You can do micro steps. You can talk to your best friends first. You talk to your parents, talk to your coach, talk to some of your teammates where you feel safe. But eventually, if you want to become the 1% of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, you got to put your neck on the line. And that's what Muhammad Ali, I think, did better than anyone.
Yeah, I look back at my lacrosse career, and I think even in high school, when I started to get a lot more competitive and I wanted to go to college, I couldn't even say to myself, oh, I want to be the best attackman on the team. I want to be a captain of the team. I want to score the most goals on the team. Like I wanted that for myself, but I never said it.
Yeah.
And I think that even translated to like my recruiting process.
Yeah.
I kind of wish sometimes I had said, this is where I want to go. Like I want to play lacrosse at an Ivy League school, right? They were things that were kind of like subtext while I was playing that they were floating around, but I never really just said it. And I think had I said it, I would have been able to backtrack into like the confidence to get there, you know?
It goes back into fear, right? And one of the questions we ask ourselves is, what's the worst that can happen? And I experienced that. You know, when I had the worst season of my career in 2020 at the championship series bubble in Utah, I went 1 for 19 over 2 weeks. I was the founder of the league and self-proclaimed one of the greatest to play the game, and had backed it up along the way, but I was in the spotlight. And then when you don't perform, people are gonna come at you. And that's really painful, no matter who you are. That off season though, experiencing that pain and facing it versus trying to dodge it or call bullshit or like, this person's wrong, they don't know what they're talking about. No, I was 1 for 19. But what that type of fear, going back to that, and that pain can ignite is really something special.
What was the self-talk in the middle of that? Because I remember watching that. That was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough.
My self-talk wasn't great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a chapter that I wrote in here about Sue Bird, a conversation that I had with her. And it's called The Law of Averages. And herself, Alex Rodriguez, myself, other athletes have shooting slumps. They play poorly for a stretch at a time.
Sue Bird, you look nervous coming into this game. Can you talk about your team's frame of mind in that first half?
I don't even know. I don't know personally what was wrong with me, but I know my team did a great job tonight, especially Swin and Dee and Asia and Tamika. I mean, they all stepped up. And that's why we're not the greatest team, but we're one of the greatest teams because, you know, when somebody's having an off night, anybody can step up and do it for us, especially in the biggest game.
And the law of averages is going back, and if you have the experience, if you're at the professional level, college level, even high school, and you have an enormous amount of data, you can say, okay, I'm a 30% shooter on the run. Right now, I'm shooting 7%. I will get back to the 30% because that's over the course of 10,000 shots where I sit. So having that kind of realization and over top of it to get back to 30%, that means I'm gonna shoot 50% during a spell because that's how you get to the weighted averages versus, what I was doing is like, I'm washed up. I was listening to the critics. I'm older, you know. I was actually given an escape valve. People were going, man, it must have been hard to build the bubble tournament and have a solution and then also train. The reality was I was training my ass off. I was hyper disciplined. I had worked harder in that off-season leading into 2020 than I did in 2019. So I couldn't sit there and say, yeah, I was trying to do too much. No, that was the reality. Sometimes we just don't perform. And you have to fall back into the law of averages and understand, okay, that's part of the journey. You're going to lose more than you're going to win. And it's about how you respond is where you end up, at the ultimate destination of where you're hoping to be.
I've crossed off Muhammad Ali. I'm crossing off Sue Bird.
Okay.
And now the third name, Kobe.
Yeah. What I admired about Kobe is that he would keep his competitive fire throughout his entire career. And why that's so difficult, as Greg Popovich would say and others, is that once you win a championship, you're first, you can never go back to having the desire to having never won before. And Kobe, like very few stars, kept that desire. It's a really unique trait, as if he had never won before.
You're up 2-0. What's the story? Are you not happy, or you're only half happy, or?
Still to be happy about.
You're up 2-0.
Job's not finished. Job finished? No, I don't think so.
And I always admire that about him. Now, one of the sections that I talk about with Kobe that's in the book is what he would say, and he would remind himself in his self-talk, is get over yourself. And there had been times, whether it was his first season playing basketball as a 12-year-old where he didn't score a point the entire season, or his rookie year in 1997 in the Western Conference Finals, shooting 4 air balls in Game 7 that ended the Lakers' season. So all of the critical inner voice, negative self-talks coming in, you suck, you're not cut out for this, you should have gone to college, you shouldn't have gone straight to the pros. The first thing he does is get over yourself, because that's all ego on the other side of what you think is you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. So get over yourself, and then focus on part 2, what you can do to improve. And that's a combination of knowing who to listen to and then how to address it. So for Kobe, he went from playing 12 games in high school a season to 82. And he realized that if I'm shooting air balls, what does that mean? I'm running out of steam. At the end of the game, I don't have my legs. So he hired a strength and conditioning coach. He trained the following year for an 82-game season, and he started doing that moving forward, and that was the difference. He went on and won loads of NBA Finals championships and MVPs. So having the ability and the wherewithal to say, get over yourself, that sort of dial down to that negative thought, and now say, okay, how can I treat the symptoms of this bad play objectively? He was the king of that.
I love that. I feel like that's something that everyone can take to their game,
Yeah.
right? Because everyone experiences something of, I remember again when I was a young player, didn't have a lot of muscle, I easily got bodied by defensemen all the time.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to look at those moments and be like, oh, I'm just not that good. I'm weak.
Yeah.
But it's much better to look at it and say, okay, what can I do? And I remember a huge thing I learned, the first time I learned to not just run in a straight line with your defenseman, but to go in and out, right? And to like play with the plane. That was one way that I was able to navigate not getting pushed around.
Yep.
Was to keep my defenseman sort of on edge and run in and out.
Yep.
And there were so many things that I could do, whether it was like speed drills or eventually when I was in college, hit the gym, that did help with that.
The ability to go, all right, I am getting pushed around by my defender. That means I need to get in the weight room. Or, I am missing my shot quite a bit. Let me address my shot on my own in practice. That type of humility is critical to moving forward. And we don't want to a lot of times. We're just kind of like, no, I'm strong. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think the mentality also that everything is constantly in evolution. I feel it now in our business quite a bit, where I'm like, oh man, like we're having kind of a down moment. Things aren't clicking, things aren't going.
Yeah.
And then you make the realization after a decade plus doing something that you're like, oh, this is the whole thing. It's gonna go down sometimes.
Yeah.
And then the work is to like pull it back up.
Yeah.
Right? And then something is inevitably gonna happen again,
Yeah.
right? And then you're gonna work to adjust. And I remember it's like a really simple statement, but one of my coaches in college said it. He just said, athletes adjust. That was it. And it stuck in my head forever. He was just like, if something's not going your way, an athlete just adjusts. That's it, they just figure out how to adjust.
100%. I mean, I love that. And the ability to just say, hey, okay, this isn't going well. What do I have to do physically and mentally to respond. I mean, even in the PLL now, as we try to refine the product and tweak rules here and there, one of the things I always fall back on is like, we have the best players in the world, the best coaches in the world, and they're going to iterate. So they've always done. The NBA went from no shot clock to a 24-second shot clock, and everyone, coaches, players, fans, way too fast. We can't get into our offense. Can't swing the ball 4 times. And the NBA had the poise to say, we're going to test this for 5 seasons. So we're giving you time to adjust, as athletes are best at. And now they have a 14-second clock on a reset and all that stuff. So that's a unique characteristic that athletes possess.
I mean, you just think back to, I randomly will, on YouTube right now, I'm sure you've seen it in our algorithm, I'm watching like 1992 lacrosse games. I don't know how, they just are all uploaded.
Yeah.
And it makes me remember, like, there's a time you have to touch it in the box.
Yeah.
Keep it in the box. Like, that was a whole different game. And the strategies were completely different at that point.
Yeah.
Like the end of a game looked completely different than it looks right now.
By the way, in 2014, the college coaches met and they were at a crossroads around that. There was something else, it was substitutions.
Yeah, subs on the fly. Right?
So
Or like
every time the ball went out of bounds, a horn would sound and everyone could wholesale change.
Yep.
And it slowed down the game like hell. The other thing that's confusing about subs is subs on the fly. So coaches went in and said, which one do we want to adjust? The horn on the sideline or the subs on the fly? We went the horn on the sideline, and the game got faster. But if we changed it to no subs on the fly, the game would have taken a whole different shape.
totally different.
And we probably would be sitting here right now loving it. Because athletes adjust.
Yeah, because athletes just naturally adjust.
All right, this next lesson, I actually heard in person when I was probably, 13 or 14, from legendary lacrosse coach Tony Seaman.
Yeah. So I was sitting at a camp when I was in 8th grade, and I just reached a point in my career where I was falling in love with lacrosse. My first season playing, I wanted to quit. I was playing rec. I went out with my buddies. They gave me a backup stick and equipment to try this game out. I stepped on the field. You practice twice a week, play 8 games, and that was that. Stepped on the field, got a ball, took a shot, flew out in the other direction. Defender went, picked it up, other side scored. They won 3-2. And I remember going home and telling my mom and dad, you know what, lacrosse isn't for me. I'm gonna stick with hoops and soccer and track and field. And my mom taught me a really important lesson around commitment. And she was like, we'll make a decision at the end of the season. Right now you committed to this season, so you're gonna go to practice every time. And if I have to drag you, I will. And she did. And I kick and scream a little bit. Cut to the end of the season, I started to figure out lacrosse. My hand-eye coordination adapted. I enjoyed it more. I committed to the next and the next. So when I got to that place where, this game was beginning to captivate me, the curiosity started to come back, which was, how do I get to the next level? I wanted to be one of the best high school players, and I wanted to get a scholarship to play college. So there was a legendary former Johns Hopkins coach, Tony Seaman, who was running a camp at Loyola College. And he brought us all in after a session and asked us the question that brought music to my ears, which was, who here wants to play college lacrosse? Everyone raised their hand. He said, how about getting a full ride to a Division I college of your choice? Wow, partial scholarships everywhere. No one even gets a full ride in lacrosse. So naturally, we all kept our hands up. And you learn in sports and in life, like everyone wants to be great, but are you gonna put that work in? So he goes, here's the work. And I thought it was gonna be really daunting. He was like, I will tell you how to get that Division I scholarship to a college of your choice. You have to do one thing, but you have to do it every single day and shoot 100 shots. Okay. He was like, do you know how long it takes to shoot 100 shots? If you do it in game shape, 30 minutes. Not that much of a commitment, huh? Guys are like, yeah, I think I can do that. I'm on my way to getting a full ride to play Division I at a college of my choice. He goes, here's the caveat. You can't miss a day. If you miss a day, the bet's off. And by the way, this bet is in the form of a guarantee. So if you shoot from this day forward, if you're in 8th grade, 7th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, through the end of your high school career, I guarantee you'll get that scholarship. So keep in mind, holidays, vacations, snowstorms, terrible weather, game day, day after a game. These are all moments where we don't put in that extra work. You have to commit to that process. And I found that not only compelling because it met what I wanted to accomplish as a young athlete, but it also felt doable because it was actionable steps. And from that day forward, I committed to that. And I took it beyond college, took it into my pro career, my international career. It's something that I'll always remember and think about even today, like what are my 100 shots no longer playing lacrosse?
Love that.
What are yours?
I just think you nailed that. That was
So good. Yeah, I felt like I was there.
You know, I think about the thing that I think about the most. What you just said was on game day, because that's like a natural like, oh no, but it's game day. I'm not going to do it today.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not going to do that. I got a whole game to play.
Yep. It's raining outside.
Yeah.
There's always, it's too dark. You have homework. There's always reasons.
Don't feel that good today.
And fuck, man, it takes a long time to commit to 4 years of 365 day per year shooting.
I'm on vacation.
Injured.
Yeah.
Shoot.
It reminds me of, this concept reminds me of Jerry Seinfeld. He did an episode with Tim Ferriss, and he talked about writing every single day. Now, the difference is, there was days that he talked about where he would sit for 30 minutes. He set a time limit on it. And he said, I didn't have to write, but I couldn't do anything else. So he'd just sit with a blank piece of paper. And over time, he'd write a lot of stuff, and most of it was bad. And then eventually he would get to the good stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to write a lot for you to eventually get to good stuff.
Yeah.
And today, when we oscillate, we aren't disciplined, but when we are disciplined with it, we get to our best ideas. Our version of this is write 10 ideas a day. Just 10 ideas for videos.
For YouTube videos.
Yeah, a day, right? And that's our reps. It's like the ideas we noticed, when you do that regularly, the ideas get better.
We did it for a week at the beginning of the year. We're still putting out videos.
We're still putting out ideas
from that first week of just writing every single day. All right, guys, this next one. Growing up, in my room in New Jersey, I had a poster of him on my wall, the definition of greatness written out with the word greatness just written right there. Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
The great one.
Wayne Gretzky was insane about his craft. And that is the story that I tell in this book. And it's tied to his love for hockey first, and then his commitment to his love. So how did love show up for Wayne? He always had his stick with him, always, slept with it. We're told those stories, like in lacrosse too. Bring your stick inside, go to bed with your stick, think about your pocket string. He was so obsessed, and he was, that obsession carried to a level of insanity. He would practice all the time, but as Wayne would reflect now and say, oddly, he never practiced. People would go, what do you mean? You had the stick in your hand, you were always on the rink outside, and like, it was like, the key for me in identifying emerging talent is seeing kids that are going out there and playing the game that they love because they love doing it. Practice for him was being told what to do, the drills, committing to, an hour a day and this and that. He was like, if I ever thought about practice, then I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today. And I use that point of reference because my belief is that if you are a kid that is putting in the work because you're being told to put in the work, you're gonna get better. If you're a kid who's putting in the work because you love to put in the work, you're gonna get way better. And if you want to play in high school, in college, in pros, you've got to be that one who's putting in the work because you love it. You're not being told by your parents and your coaches. And, look, coming back to this book, there's a spectrum of lessons that I share. There's no such thing as a blueprint. So I could feel the heat of what Samir was going to ask me next, which was, well, what about the 100 shots a day? Isn't that prescription? So the goal is for me in writing this, is to understand all these different perspectives of all these great athletes and coaches and where did I fit in at times. And Wayne was playing because he loved it. I was playing because I loved it. I brought some math to it. I'm sure Wayne had some of that. But his idea of success was love.
I mean, you got to be the type of person that wants to do it, whether you get that scholarship to the school you want to go to or not. Right? Like at the end of the day, you got to be the person that wants to be out there shooting 100 shots.
I mean, do you guys love storytelling?
Yeah, we would do it. We always say this. If we didn't have our YouTube channel, if we didn't have any success, maybe we would get other jobs, obviously, but we would still be making videos.
Tell you
Still be
what you
telling
love to do.
stories.
We did it without validation or of any sort for a long time, and I think we would do it again. Like, it does change. The nature of it changes when you experience some level of success with it, because those two things become tied, right? And I think about it a lot, but I'd be curious. Like right now, you still go out and shoot, right?
Yeah. It's my relationship to my younger self. And the most creative form that I found myself in was 28 years of playing lacrosse, being out on the field, shooting, feeling the ball in my pocket, the release of the ball out of my stick. And to lose that would feel like losing a large chunk of myself.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's love. That's love. I mean, we have a toss every single day.
The people who work here would tell you, we are playing lacrosse.
We play lacrosse
every
in
day.
some way, shape, or form, every single day.
In the parking lot.
Yeah.
Every day.
It's like, it's this thing that I miss practice and suiting up more than anything in the world. Like, I just miss it.
Yeah.
And I think that was like, playing lacrosse for me was a really interesting thing because there was no path to playing lacrosse at any substantial level, right? Like I played club lacrosse, which is a form of loving lacrosse where you pay thousands of dollars in college to play. And like the kids on that team, some of them had to like work and had jobs in town to pay for the gloves that our team gloves and like stuff like that. And I think, I don't know, there was just such a deep love for it. And like all of those guys from my college team still love the sport.
That's why I love the MCLA and just generally
the
club lacrosse. I mean, it's a cut above when you are, and I did this growing up playing rec sports, when you are washing cars and shoveling snow out of driveways and pitching lemonade stands such that you can fund the jerseys that your team is wearing to compete. When you're coming out of pocket to profess your love, that's another level. I love that. Yeah. I'll give you one other range of lessons to sort of back up the different experiences that might feel like they're in conflict, but they've worked for different people. We grew up with different parents in different neighborhoods, different access to coaches and teammates and socioeconomic background, all this stuff, which makes each of our process unique. Take the two greatest footballers ever, Pelé and Tom Brady. Pelé won 3 World Cups, Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls. Their game day preparation couldn't have been more opposite. Pelé would meditate. He'd lay on a bench, put a cold towel over his eyes, and imagine the ball hitting his foot into the back of the net. He needed to bring his heart rate down. Tom Brady utilized anger. Whether it was manufactured about something that the opposing team said, or whether it was actual newspaper material. He wanted to feel pissed off because that would raise his level of emotion and focus, and he was at his best when he had that heightened sense. Totally different, both worked. So where do you fall? I tried the meditative state. I had a coach, John Paul, at Atlas, who felt like, hey, I was struggling. Have you thought about maybe calming down a little bit? You're a skill player, you're an offensive guy. Maybe relax. I was lethargic on the field. I didn't have that sense of emotionality. I hung out with the defenders in the locker room. I like to headbutt, listen to high charge music, and get out there like it was the gridiron. That's what worked for me. And there's all these other ways in the middle that hopefully, each of us are lucky enough to find at some point. How did you get ready? What worked for you?
I needed like some swagger. So I would listen to Jay-Z, like the Blueprint.
You were a swagger guy.
I was a swagger guy and I would jump rope with headphones in, and I would jump rope listening to Jay-Z, and I would kind of dance. I needed to feel the fluidity and kind of the swagger of like coming on the field, and like I was always like, a defender would look at me and be like, this guy's small, he's not gonna be great, like, and kind of feel like they could, push me around. And what I did every day is I jump roped so that I could move faster than them. And so I loved the feeling of getting the ball and kind of shocking them with a move.
Yeah.
like juking them real quick or doing like a split dodge or even just like a quick move and having them be like, oh, okay, this is serious.
Prove people wrong.
I loved that feeling. Yeah, so I needed that like the Jay-Z blueprint kind of like, that vibe was,
When I think about jump rope, I think about Muhammad Ali. I think about the greatest boxers in the world, where some of the most fortuitous stories were structured in the 50s, 60s, and 70s about boxing in America. So when I would jump rope, I would put myself in the mindset of being a heavyweight champion. One of the things that I enjoyed about getting out on the field by myself, I grew up watching a VHS tape on Michael Jordan called Come Fly With Me. And there were these scenes where he would walk into a gym, flip the lights on, kush, 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 and he'd have the ball, and you could just hear the ball bounce against the hardwood. You could close your eyes and you knew what he was doing, because when you wouldn't hear the hardwood, you knew he was pulling up for a shot.
Never stop working.
And then the shot would go in by the swish of the net, where you'd hear the iron.
I feel I have to.
And that feeling that I would get listening to Michael in an empty gym by himself felt to me like what it's all about. And so if you can, as an athlete, embrace those moments and fall in love with the process, because most people don't like that. They either want to be at practice with the team or be in the game. So how can you visualize the jump roping, the ball bouncing against the court in an empty gym? That's a key to success. What about you?
Yeah, I'll say I was a swagger guy as well, but it really, it wasn't music as much as it was like my gear and my equipment.
Yeah.
Like having my helmet down a little bit low, my chin strap unbuckled, my gloves on a certain way, my shirt coming out of the back of my jersey, my cleats like just perfect with my socks, and like bouncing around in pregame and switching hands left to right, feeling really fluid and thinking the other team is watching me from that side and they see how comfortable all my stuff is on me and how fluid I am, and they know I'm the best player on the field. Like they're looking at me as I'm moving throughout warm-ups going like, damn, that guy, he's comfortable. Like we should watch out for him. And that was my mindset, was like, if I can show up as the best player on the field in warm-ups with the most swagger, then like the other side will know that and I'll play that way.
Yeah, what do they say? Look good, feel good, play good.
Yeah, I was like that kind of guy.
I would say that's also probably because both of us were like major Mike Powell fans.
Yes.
And the way Mike Powell,
Eye black,
dude,
high socks.
And
Mike Powell
the
was swagger.
Tufts lacrosse video that came out.
and tough
Of them bringing a bucket out under the lights and shooting.
That was a
The
lot of
swagger in that video is out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also a component of making sure that you're looking good. You said, you talk about the undershirt pulled out. You talk about the helmet tilt.
Yeah.
You know, there's
Which is the way I feel today. Like if I'm gonna go do public speaking or I'm gonna go do something, I wanna feel good.
Yeah.
Right? It's not that different actually.
one of the greatest corners in the NFL, now the Washington Commanders Hall of Famer, Dale Green. At the time, I grew up outside of Washington, and I would watch Dale Green, number 28, and I just like loved him. He had all these interceptions he'd take to the house, but he was known as the fastest player in the NFL. And he had this thing before games where he'd put a Tootsie Roll in his sock. And he looked at the camera and go, Tootsie Roll, baby. Make you run fast. And then he'd go out. And that was like his thing.
So good.
Right? And some of it's tied to swagger, and some of it's tied to order. Rafa Nadal, he knows that tennis matches can go all over the place. So and some people call him OCD, but he puts his bottle here.
Yeah.
Touches this, touches this.
You seen him serve?
Touches there.
Right before he serves? It's the exact same thing. Every single
Routine.
time.
It's controlling the controllables, right? It's like, fourth quarter of a basketball game, you got fouled, taking 2 shots, down by 1, 5 seconds left. A lot of emotion, packed arena, you're away, they're yelling at you, you're tired, end of the game. How do you sort of create a state that is comfortable such that you can hit those 2 shots? That's why people have free throw routines. It's like, okay, all this shit's happening, dribble, spin, just like practice, right? And those are the controllables. Figuring what that is for you. Golf, they all do it. Line up the ball a certain way. 18th hole, Sunday, Masters, a lot of pressure. So it comes to life in different forms. Swagger, intensity, visuals, execution.
You mentioned free throws there.
Yeah.
So I skipped this one from earlier, but I'm bringing it back. Steph Curry.
Yeah. Steph Curry is known around the world for someone who could score consistently from 50 feet. And what he tells me is the unfortunate trend that he sees set now is kids going on the basketball court and starting from 40 feet. And he goes, whoa, 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 let me remind you, every practice I start in the paint. It came from his father, Dell. And what that means is first directly under the hoop, 10 balls straight up into the net, no rim. But focusing on his form. We've all played basketball and gotten under the hoop, you sort of push it in because you're really close. No, it's difficult when you're right under the rim and you have a full follow through. Step back, another 10, step back, another 10. And it's those commitment to the fundamentals that allows him to be the artist that he is and shoot in all different trajectories from all different spots on the floor. But he always starts in the paint. And some people might look at that and say like, oh, wow, like, anyone can do that. I had a process that was similar to Steph's that I learned from the great Morgan Wooten at DeMatha. He had the same type of start in the paint mentality. And what I would do every practice is I would stand in what we call the island, 5 yards out, 5 yards up, and shoot 10 balls directly into the corner. People love to make fun of me for that. 2 reasons. You're so damn close, show off. And the other is, of course you're gonna make them, and it doesn't take a lot. But what they didn't realize is that I was working on my form such that I could take a step back, step back, step back, and then hit those shots on the run from 16. So it always starts from the paint, and if you forget that, you're never gonna be able to hit 40 feet consistently.
It's funny. We used to call that, it's just like hitting me right now. In college, we did that. It was called Rabil shooting. Maybe you released something about it at some point. But we would go 5 and 5, and we had to go bottom corner. Everyone had to hit. Then offside hit, or basically hit, like middle of the cage, and then top corner. And we'd do it from both sides.
Yep.
And we'd do it 5 and 5, just over and over and over again. And that's how we started every single pregame. We did that, and also beginning of practice.
I mean, here's the thing. If you are, even in college, high school, certainly younger, if you're starting with the highest degree of difficulty, you're gonna throw your form off.
Yeah, totally.
If you step out on the basketball court and start chucking threes, your form is gonna start from your hips. Mm-hmm. And so it was always a good reminder for me to say, okay, this is basically just hips and up, bottom, top hand, push, pull. And then when I step out, now I'm using my core and I'm using my base and I'm rotating all the way through. But I know that these 2 arms have regulated and they control ultimately the accuracy. Now I'm adding power to it. So it was an intentional process as well.
All right, next up, your college coach, Dave Petromala. I'm sure you've learned an unbelievable amount from him.
Yeah.
But if you had to give us one moment, one story.
So Coach Petro's sprinkled into the chapters probably more than anyone else. I'll share one story, and it was my freshman year on campus, fall. Coach Petro heavily recruited me. And frankly, Hopkins was not even in my top 5 when I began looking at schools. North Carolina was one, mainly the ACCs, Syracuse, Princeton. Those are the schools I want to go to. Coach Petro was an unbelievable recruiter. I mean, his commitment to the little things of writing handwritten notes, cutting out newspaper clippings of last year's championship won by Syracuse, crossing out Mikey Powell's name, writing Paul Rabil, sending that in the mail. Things like that were extraordinary and special. When I got recruited to campus, he put me in with the junior best player on the team at the time, off-campus housing, Kyle Harrison. Every other school that recruited me put me in with a freshman in the dorms. I understand that because that's the experience you're gonna have. But Coach Petro was like, no, I'm gonna put you with our best player to set a tone. This is what we expect from you when you're on campus. That's how I set the stage. Now, I walk in, first thing he does, first practice, you're on the defensive end. I'm like, what the fuck is that? You just recruited me. I'm here to play offense. I'm here to put the ball in the net. He was like, you're not going to take a shot until you learn my defense. I was like, okay, I think I can understand this because he's a defensive guy, sure. 1 practice in, 2 practice, 3, all the fall, I didn't step on the offensive end because he was really intentional about it. And his note was, if you can't figure out my defense, if you can't play defense under our system, how can I trust you to be on the field when inevitably you're going to track back and defend? Once you figure out defense, then I'll let you play O. And that was his process. I learned from folks like Peyton Manning and Ray Lewis what made them unique. Peyton Manning knew if he knew the linebacker position better than linebackers, he was going to be a better quarterback because they quarterback spy. And Ray Lewis knew if I knew the quarterback position better than any quarterback, I'm going to anticipate plays, pick off balls, attack the gap, make a big tackle. Those two studied the opposites of their position. Cut to semifinals. We were 15-0 playing against Virginia at Lincoln Financial Field. 50,000 people in the stands. It was a back and forth game, huge rainstorm, stopped it for 45 minutes. We came out of the break. Kyle Harrison ties it at 7, sends us to overtime. Back and forth in OT. I'm out on offense. They get a stop. I track back to play defense on the biggest stage. And had I not spent all that time in the fall learning Hopkins defense, I wouldn't have figured out the slides and the rotations when they had a high-powered offense with the ball and the game on the line. We got a stop. Tom Garvey threw me a ball over my shoulder. I picked it up, carried it down. Benson Irwin, another defensive player, was following me. I turned back, passed it to him. Benson scores the game-winning goal.
Benson Irwin scores! He wins the game for Hopkins! The senior...
Sending us into the championship where we beat Duke and finished a 16-0 season.
Coach, Duke was not shy when they said they wanted to play you in this final, and they came out swinging. What was the turning point of the game for you guys?
Well, first off, you ought to be careful what you wish for.
So the lesson there is if you can study your opponent and know your opponent better than they know themselves, you're going to be a champion.
Our high school coach used to make all the attackmen and offensive midfielders step in goal one day.
I love that.
Because we had to just see.
So
just
smart.
be like, what does the vantage point look like from your opponent? And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Of course you should know that.
My junior year in high school, I stepped in between the pipes
Yeah.
during summer ball and played half a season of summer ball as a goalie. So you can sort of you're exactly right. You can understand, oh, you're swinging down the alley. All I have to do is step out. This is a lot easier to save than this.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, of course you should understand your opponent, but it doesn't feel obvious until you do it.
Yeah, and I think this is also pure sports advice, right? Because as I think about your world and in the world of business, your opponent may be your competitors, and you have to be conscientious of them.
Yeah.
But if you overthink about what your competitors are doing, you're going to lose sight of you. So it's very prescriptive to...
I think it's more your customer and your end user in business, right? Like you have to deeply understand who's on the other side of what you're putting out.
Yeah.
That's where I think the comparison is,
But in the end, as you know, you've got to put out what's authentic to you.
Yeah, yeah. But you have to empathize with how it's being received, right? In that offense goalie relationship, it's the same thing. It's like when I shoot the ball, how is this looking to them?
Yeah.
Right? And you can still be your authentic self, but understanding and being empathetic with what's happening on the other side.
Yeah. How does that show up for you now?
I mean, we study our audience all the time.
Using...
We just need to know. We need to know how we're being received.
Do you ask them or do you just follow their
Yeah, we just follow.
viewing habits?
We follow their habits, and then we also are actual consumers ourselves of the same type of content, right? So
I love that.
We can empathize with ourselves of like, how am I feeling while I'm watching this? Am I bored? Am I interested?
Yeah.
Should this have moved faster? Do I feel like they're spoon feeding me this information?
Yeah.
Then we start to understand it better.
All right. Number 8 of 10, and we may sprinkle in a couple others here.
Okay.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah. I'll try to be more concise here because his words are very much that. And the picture is all the stories we've told. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of focus and commitment. And with that comes challenges and pain and sometimes self-doubt. And you begin to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is this for me? And what DJ says that's really unique is he falls back on his anchor. And that could be your origin story. That could be reminding yourself why you love lacrosse, why you first played it, sometimes visualizing what that feels like when you catch a ball and put it in the back of the net for the first time. That's an experience that can help revive us when we're in the slumps. For DJ, his anchor is, for me, a bar that he sets for himself that is symbolic as much as it is physical. And he says, I will not be outworked by anyone ever. I get up at 4 a.m. and I work out, I study my scripts, I hit the gym to get prepared for the next WWE match. And that is his anchor. Every single day, 4 a.m. before anyone else wakes up, and I will outwork you. So is that a mission statement? What is it for you that you can wake up to and know? Is it your 100 shots? Is it the alarm clock? It's sacrifice. And you have to commit to that sacrifice, have a really deep relationship with it, and that will become your mission.
I think I'm actually find myself in the moment almost searching for one, because there was a time where it was, for us, it was we wanted 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And that was a really helpful anchor. That was a target that we were shooting at. And what was really interesting was once we hit it, it almost felt like things kind of fell, because the anchor was almost too quantitative, right? It's a quantifiable anchor that wasn't a commitment to the practice. It was just a commitment to try and get to this goal. And once we hit it, it was okay, cool. So is the next one 2 million? Is it 10 million? Is it what's the next anchor? And you realize it's okay, now we're just in it. We earned ourselves the opportunity to have the career. So now the anchor is I think for us is very much the next video. Right now it's is the next one, are we proud of the next one? Are we proud of the next one? Are we proud of the next one?
Well, let's workshop this, because I don't think that was an anchor. That was a goal.
That was a goal, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, what came to mind was this line. I don't know where I read it, but it's the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I've tried to think about that often of, even if I eat dinner, I put the dishes in the sink and then I just leave them there. It's kind of a half-assed way of taking care of my space.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not the way I want to treat the way I go after things, right? And so I try to think about that, of no matter, even if it's something really small, however I treat that, the way I treat it could carry over to much bigger things.
Yeah. And why I highlight Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as establishing an anchor is that there is two things, two barbed flukes. One is actual action. Every single day, I'm waking up at 4 a.m. There's a belief that no one else is up at that hour doing. And the other fluke is that belief that because I'm up at 4 a.m., I will not be outworked, ever. And so if it was just I will not be outworked, I think there's some commonality across the board with other people. He pairs it with I'm getting up at 4 a.m. every day. I think that's what makes it unique, and that's why I study it and highlight it, is as I think one of the prime examples.
Next one, Bill Belichick.
So Bill Belichick, 8 Super Bowls, one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach ever in any sport. He was able to consistently get his teams to perform, taking on some of the most dynamic players in NFL history, forcing them to focus on a singular job. And that was the mantra of the Patriots for decades: do your job. That wasn't just a directive to the players, it was himself. And holding himself and others to that standard enables a team to be at its best. So I'll share 2 examples of how do your job came to life. Marty Bennett was one of the great tight ends in the NFL at the time. He came over to the Patriots on a trade. And he walked into this winning culture, speaking of momentum. They won the AFC championship. He comes in the locker room, throws his helmet. AFC champs. Tom Brady, Julian Edelman was sitting down like, pick up your fucking helmet. Sit down in your locker, man. We've got a Super Bowl to win. You don't come to New England to win an AFC championship. Come here to win a Super Bowl. Marty was like, damn, okay. 2 weeks later, they were playing the Atlanta Falcons, and they were down 21-3 at halftime. For those that watch the NFL will always remember that game. Most people turned it off, and they woke up to the Patriots winning. They come into halftime, and Marty Bennett is told by the coach, yes, you're leading the team in touchdown receptions. You're one of the best sort of outfield tight ends in the NFL, but in this second half, you need a chip block. And Marty, do your job, ingrained in his head, go, whatever it takes. He said the locker room was so calm, no one was finger pointing, everyone was thinking about what their job is and potentially what it has to evolve to get back into the game. A chip block is snap, he's gonna go hit a linebacker or a D tackle. He's gonna hit someone and then he's gonna go out on his route. Didn't have touchdown catches in the championship game. They came back and they won. Here's the other example having to do with that. Bill Belichick's job is to put his team in the best position to win, no matter the circumstances. Here's one unique thing about the Super Bowl, the halftime show. It's 30 minutes long. An average halftime in the NFL is half of that. What do the Patriots do for their 2 weeks of practice? They schedule a 30-minute break right in the middle of practice. Not only that, they march back into the locker room in Foxborough, and then in the locker room are their PB&Js, their Gatorades. They sit down in their locker. They go through the game plan for the second half of practice. They simulate that 30-minute break. You think like, wow, that level of attention to detail. But Bill's job is to get his team prepared for, in this case, the Super Bowl. What does the Super Bowl look like? Well, it's a different game. And I think Bill's success is largely tied to his ability to not only hold his players to the standard of doing their job, but him to do his just as well.
Incredible attention to detail.
Insane.
So good.
So good.
Who fucking practices halftime?
It's so good.
It's unbelievable.
It makes so much sense.
The other thing that he would do is he would have his chief of staff in the Patriots administration office handle all of the family and friends tickets. It's such a novel experience for a lot of guys getting the Super Bowl. And everyone comes out of the woodworks. How can I get a ticket? And they're like, negotiating with their team and getting, bulk discount buys. And Bill's like, no, none of that. We've got all of your family and friends taken care of. Burge, who's famous in New England, would call everyone, set it up so the team can just focus on the game. Those little things is why Bill's won 8 Super Bowls.
That's incredible.
Incredible.
Okay, we're down to the final lesson. There are clearly many, many more lessons in the way of the champion.
Thanks for that promo.
I've thought about that for this whole time. I was ready for that.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Okay, the last one. Abby Wambach.
Yeah. So Abby is one of the greatest soccer players of all time. The NCAA titles, the NWSL titles, the Olympics, the World Cup, gold medals, iconic. Long-standing career, was the Gatorade All-American, always could put the ball in the back of the net. She tells me that she thinks about her goal-scoring prowess tied to having amnesia on the field. This is not the lesson I'm going to share, but I have to discuss her ability as a forward, sometimes not touching the ball until the 90th minute when the pressure is on, to be able to forget about all the missed chances along the way and just, boom, execute when the ball is against her head or on her foot. She was a spectacular goal scorer. And in life, we often think about sport and business, careers, family through the lens of legacy. How are we going to be remembered? And Abby had this unbelievable retirement speech that had to do about being forgotten. She was like, my goal in life is being forgotten. Abby took on something far greater than just her individual career. She took on the growth of women's soccer and the growth of women's sports. And she recounted the moments that she was breaking ground, being on SportsCenter, being at the ESPYs, getting a Gatorade sponsorship, signing with Nike. This is stuff that no other women's soccer player had been able to get to at her level. ever. And she enjoyed that stuff. But she also knew that if Abby Wambach was continuing to be booked for these gigs after she retired, which is the pattern that had happened in women's soccer, then there was no longer someone who was taking the role that she had on the field. So her belief was, if I do a good enough job, then Alex Morgan's gonna come through. Megan Rapinoe's gonna come through. The next stars are going to take the next step. And that, by virtue of that level of growth, is gonna render me forgotten. So I think about that because we're taught the opposite. How can we impact the field and what we do such that we'll always be remembered? Truth is, everyone's forgotten. It takes an extended period of time for some, like the Mozarts and the Van Goghs, but at some point they'll be forgotten too. But very few people are remembered. You know, who won the Tour-a-thon last year? Do you know, last year?
Schellenberger? No?
No. Who won the NBA championship last year? It's hard. I mean, people will know the answer to that is watching, but
I mean, we know. We're just, it's a good bit to not know.
We move on. We move on. Who won the NBA championship? Yeah, you don't fucking know.
We know. We're just doing a bit.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Wait, who won the Tour-a-thon last year?
So, I think it was Brendan O'Neill, was it? Is he going to be up for back-to-back?
So you don't even know?
No, I don't even know. I don't even know. I don't even fucking know.
Was it Brendan O'Neill? No. But that's telling, right?
That's telling.
Yeah, that's telling.
Everyone's forgotten.
Yeah. And soon, LeBron James, Steph Curry, and KD will be forgotten. Same reason that the current generation never saw Michael Jordan play. That's life. But to build a level of comfort, to build a relationship with the act of service, being able to turn back and say, everything that I worked for is in posterity, is something that I believe to be true and try to commit to at this stage of my life. I enjoy being on SportsCenter. I enjoy doing sponsorship deals. I loved being on the field competing. I started the PLL with my brother. I know that the PLL will have worked when I'm no longer being booked on late night on SportsCenter in sponsorship ads, when that's Trevor Baptiste, when that's McCabe Millen or Joey Spallina, when that's Jackson Tolmack, who's in high school now. When that starts happening, that's real success. And that is, I think, the goal for me. It was the goal for Abby, and I think should be something that we each think about.
I love that. And I wonder, even, you know, just like to bring it to a meta moment here of like where my mind went is like sitting here on TLN and how many people watching this have no idea that who we are.
Yeah.
And there's something really amazing about that, you know, and like to me, it's like so exciting to see this brand continue to grow and like the stories continue to be told in lacrosse. And again, like it feels really powerful to be able to now watch it.
Yeah, some of it, as Kobe would say, is it's simple math.
Yeah.
You started the YouTube channel 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the kids who were 15 years old are now 30 with kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the kids who are watching the YouTube channel now were just being born.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to be a part of.
Well, some of those stories make me want to run through a wall.
Yeah.
Some of them are like, that you tell them very well. I think you have such a great relationship with this complex world of athleticism and storytelling. And how much you realize as you're telling these stories.
We're relating to them now as creatives and entrepreneurs.
You know, like whether you're an athlete or not, these stories, there's lessons in them for you.
Yeah.
It's anyone trying to do anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're trying to do something. There's stories in here for you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Steve Jobs famously said, the moment life changes is the moment we realize that everything that's in front of us, the rules, the laws, the cups, were created by someone no smarter than us.
Right.
And the notion for me in sport is that anyone who believes in manifestation and commitment to the work and has the discipline, they can be the best. It's out there for you to do. You have to recognize it. You have to believe it. You have to say it and then go get it. No champion has ever had it easy. And that's the last thing I'll leave you with. People think, oh, champions win. And they're just better at sport. They're not. In fact, the data shows the opposite. They've lost more. And it's through losing, you build more resilience. They have this Kevlar that inevitably leads to winning. Bill Belichick, who wrote the foreword, second losingest NFL coach of all time. And when he gets his next job, he'll be the losingest coach ever. 8 Super Bowls. Michael Jordan famously missed 9,000 shots. Kobe Bryant, as we discussed, didn't have a point in his first season. Cy Young, the award given out to Major League Baseball's best, he blew more saves than any other pitcher in MLB history. Martin Brodeur gave up more goals in hockey. Peyton Manning, rookie year, still has the record for most interceptions. He threw 28. Metallica had album flops. We talked about Vincent van Gogh being remembered. He never sold a painting when he was alive. All of these people share in common a relationship with pain and persistence. And we're just like them. We just have to believe it, say it, go do it.
That's a great place to end.
Yeah, I love it, man. I appreciate you for writing this. I'm proud of you for writing this. And man, what a gift to have this conversation on TLN. So cool.
It's amazing. The Way of the Champion, it's out now. It's linked in the description, I assume, but I don't control this description anymore. So I hope it is.
There it is. You know, these are the 2 guys that I missed.
I used to know when every single upload was coming out.
Yeah. But it's probably there somewhere. If not, just look it up. The Way of the Champion by Paul Rabil. Paul, congrats.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man. This was awesome.
Appreciate you. I've learned how to storytell through our relationship.
Okay, I expect some royalties on this book then.
Let's not go that far.
All right. Yeah. Well, all right.
I guess, depends on how many click-throughs on the links.
Okay, all right.
Let's negotiate the deal now.
All right, guys. See ya.